So it's no wonder why the United States, as well as the rest of the world, is now starting to walk away from this EV trend. Everybody kept saying that electric vehicles were the future, but there is new data out to support that that is not the case. And many of these automakers are losing literally billions of dollars. GM is one of them, as well as Ford Motors is another one that has lost over $1 billion betting on the electric vehicle market, and it just hasn't worked out for them. Of course, they're blaming moves by the government recently to end the EV subsidies, but we wouldn't need electric vehicle subsidies if people actually wanted to buy them, right? They would just sell on their own. If they were such a superior product and everybody wanted them so badly, they would be outselling gas-powered cars by the millions, but they're not. And ultimately, this is kind of a lesson in, government interference. When you look at subsidies for everything, typically they've made everything that's subsidized more expensive in the past. And even though with the electric vehicles, they were making them cheaper or at least equal to gas-powered cars for a while, now that the subsidies are gone, they're back to being more expensive again. Automakers themselves have recently been coming out and saying that consumers are not adopting EVs as quickly as expected. The chairman of Nissan just said there is more realism that EVs are probably a good solution in the future, but it's not going to be forced down the throat of consumers. In other words, you can't force people to adopt something that they don't want to. After all, consumers vote with their wallets. If they don't buy something, then it's unprofitable to create that product, and a lot of manufacturers are going to stop making it and switch to whatever is profitable. That's how economics work. A lot of car makers are saying that the EV business model is completely unprofitable, and a lot of them are paring back their EV offerings altogether because it's not profitable. Volkswagen's kind of been leading the charge on this in Europe when it said it was going to cut 35,000 jobs as a part of a deal with its union. And prior to now in Europe, they had a target for cutting carbon emissions down to zero by the year 2035. And it looks like they're going to be revisiting that real soon because they're realizing that is not going to be a realistic goal for Europe. In fact, take a look at some of these charts here. This shows you the projected sales in the US of where things are going with the auto industry. And you can see that projected sales moving forward are in favor of gasoline-powered cars. Hybrids are second on the list, which is not surprising at all. I've seen every time I've talked about this in the comments section that a lot of people keep saying, I like hybrids. I don't want an electric car. I like hybrids. They get the best of both worlds, increases my gas mileage substantially. This is the technology that they should be leaning in towards. And the sales kind of reflect that. This is the second most adopted vehicle type right now. Electric vehicle sales are projected to actually go down the most, and plug-in hybrids are kind of flat. Meanwhile, in Europe, you can see electric vehicle sales are projected to continue going down, while the hybrid vehicle sales in Europe are on the rise. And plug-in hybrids are only seeing a marginal improvement. Really only in China is the only region of the world where electric vehicle sales are projected to still dominate and continue to go up. But does it really count what China's doing? Because let's face it, guys, that's a communist country, and they're kind of told what to do over there. The government tells you to drive an electric car, or they say, this is the type of car you need to have, and this is the cheapest type of car to have. Well, that's what people are going to do over there. Versus here in America, where we still have some level of freedom at least, people get to choose. And even with the government subsidies, that wasn't enough to push most people towards driving electric. So these automakers have no choice but to look at producing vehicles that people actually want to buy worldwide. When the entire world, besides China, is saying we want more gas-powered cars, we want more hybrid cars, we don't want the electric cars, what do you think they're going to have to do? They're going to have to give people what they want. And if they don't, automakers that are willing to come in and serve that need are going to be the ones who win. And even in China, where EV sales and EV adoption has been the highest, that adoption has been coming at the expense of profitability for these Chinese automakers. Because it's a completely oversaturated market over there, it's predicted that most of the 118 EV brands operating there as of 2023 will not be viable in 5 years from now. So all these EV startups that jumped on the bandwagon, most of them are not going to survive the EV transition. And China's the strongest EV market in the entire world. If the electric vehicle automakers can't survive over there, there's no chance they're going to be able to survive in Europe and the United States without giving people what they want. And so ultimately, this is a lesson in economics, guys, because in the US, it's now predicted that EVs will make up about 18% of brand new vehicle sales by 2030, which is only about half of what it expected just 2 years ago. So they massively, massively overestimated the electric vehicle adoption rate, not only here in America, but all throughout the rest of the world. And let's not forget, that is with subsidies that we had over the past 4 or 5 years, that $7,500 tax credit to get that brand new car. That's with used Teslas costing as low as $15,000 or $20,000 right now today in 2025. And so ultimately, I'm not saying that nobody should own one of these cars or that no one wants them, because clearly a lot of people do drive them and they do want them, but that is a minority. You know, this is not the majority of people out there. It is still a niche product, so to speak, in the auto industry. And so far, it looks like the chances of it becoming mainstream are not looking good. When only 18% of people in the US are going to be driving an electric car by 2030, that's still 5 years from now. And I remember seeing comments on my channel from people saying, oh, you have no idea what you're talking about, Michael. Look at what they're doing in China. Look how cheap they are to produce those BYD cars over there. It's only a matter of time before the whole world is driving electric cars. That's what everybody was saying. Well, even in China, they're having a hard time with it over there. Even though the adoption rate is high at over 60%, these companies can't produce a profit because the cars are not profitable to make. So in China, they are trying to sustain a system that is unsustainable. Kind of like what we do here in the US with a lot of things. And so the real economic lesson here is that you just can't force people to buy something that they don't want. And it really sucks that this whole initiative and agenda to push electric vehicles on people has caused car prices for brand new cars across the board to rise to record high prices. And all of that just sounds like poor economic decisions, in my opinion. So let me know what you guys think about all this down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.